Muy buenas tardes a todos. Muchísimas gracias por acompañarnos en este café de música y ciencia, en el que estamos teniendo la maravillosa oportunidad de conversar un ratito con investigadores, con científicos y con profesionales líderes al frente de proyectos que están evaluando el impacto de la música a nivel social y a nivel sanitario. En concreto, estas conversaciones versan alrededor de la salud de la mujer y de la mujer madre específicamente. Hoy tenemos el placer en este momento de charlar con la doctora Dennie Palmer-Wolf. Es una de las líderes investigadoras en Estados Unidos en el ámbito de la educación artística. Ha trabajado durante más de 10 años en el equipo de investigación de Proyecto Cero de la Universidad de Harvard. Ella es doctora por la Universidad de Harvard y actualmente desarrolla su carrera profesional en la consultora Wolf Brown, que está formada por un equipo de profesionales con una dilatadísima y una larguísima carrera profesional a sus espaldas en el ámbito de la educación artística, de la cultura, de las artes y de la creatividad. Esta consultora trabaja tanto para el gobierno de los Estados Unidos, para el Departamento estadounidense de Educación, y reciben también apoyo de la Agencia Nacional para las Artes, y trabajan tanto investigando como desarrollando, diseñando, implementando y evaluando estrategias para hacer accesible el arte, la cultura y la educación artística al conjunto de la sociedad. Así que le doy las gracias a Denny por acompañarnos esta tarde y vamos directamente a pasar a hablar con ella. Thank you very much, Denny, for being here with us. We really appreciate your time. Um, we would like to start asking you what is the Lullaby project, which you know very well. You have been working with it for years. And why music to work with this group of population?
Thank you for this invitation. It's a wonderful opportunity to use the way in which we are, all of us building a global conversation, to think very hard about the lives of mothers, women, children, and families. So my entry into this work comes with the Lullaby Project, which is a project from Carnegie Hall, begun in 2011, to think about the potential role of music in supporting caregivers, most of them mothers, who had the aspiration to raise strong young families, even though their situations were very tough. So people living in shelters because they were temporary homeless, women who were incarcerated, women who were in halfway houses because of addiction issues. The project basically brings teaching artists, practicing musicians, together with mothers over a period of time, as few as 3 sessions, maybe as many as 10 or 12, to write a lullaby for their youngest child, or maybe all of their children in case there are many, and to use that process to help mothers in many ways. When we started, we thought that the focus would be simply on having a keepsake, a lullaby, and a way for the Carnegie Hall to connect outwards beyond the concert hall. But as we watched the sessions, we realized that there were many, many other effects for women. First of all, they realized that they were not invisible and hidden from public view, that people had an interest in their well-being. Secondly, that another person, a musician, would pour time into the composition, into the lyrics, into the performance. And these are women for whom most of their adolescent and adult life, people have not cared for them deeply and tenderly. That there were people who were interested in listening to their aspirations for their children, and that they could form a very tight social and artistic community with the other mothers and the musicians. So all of those consequences, the ones about hope for the future, the sense of their own competence and potential creativity, and their ability to make social connections. The other thing I should say about the social connections is it turned out that the lullabies, because they were digitally recorded and stored in the cloud, could also serve as messages. So to be sent to maybe to the child's father, who may have been absent for a long time, to send to grandparents, to send to aunts. So it, in some cases, also helped women to reestablish a social network around their motherhood and around their aspirations for a better life for their children.
It really takes care of women.
Yes.
It really turns the focus into women's needs, not only in their babies, but also in women's. How do they report to receive that support? How do they report those benefits?
From a research point of view, we were able to take their lyrics, their conversations, and also their stories of being a parent, and code them using computer programs to look at what happened over time to their sense of themselves, their social network, their sense of hope. You know, I think it attaches to a much bigger issue of how we think about public health. So, you know, many national programs of public health, you know, focus on nutrition, vaccination, all absolutely important things.
Of course.
But they are about health sort of technically defined, not about well-being. Yeah. So the question I think it raises is for local or even program or a national program of public health, what would it look like to follow mothers and to support them along these dimensions of social connectedness or sense of competence, or particularly mothers who may be single parents, who bear so much responsibility both for being a caregiver, a role model, a worker.
So actually, well-being is quite a subjective factor, or we may think it's somewhat blurred concept. What elements do you exactly look at to study and to evaluate well-being in this project in particular?
Yeah, we've drawn on many of the categories that come from Seligman's work on positive psychology. So we've looked at and expanded on his dimensions. So people's sense of having meaning in their lives, their ability to experience positive emotion, but also one of the things that came out of the Lullaby project was a future, what we call a future orientation, a sense that there are possibilities out there, both for you as a parent and for you, for your children, that might be different. So the notion that it isn't, everything is not preordained, you're not doomed, that people's efforts can make a difference.
That's key in the process, actually.
Yeah. I mean, so in the Lullaby project, one of the stories we collected from mothers was to ask them, imagine it's 20 years later, your son, daughter finds this lullaby. What will you tell them about why you wrote it and what was in your mind? And there you get a sense of mothers saying, oh, I wrote it because I wanted you to have a life that would, and very often they tell you very, very elaborate stories like, oh, I'm imagining my son, he's 24, he's an architect, he's helping me to move to a new apartment, he finds the lullaby. No. So it speaks to this sense of an arc in life. Yeah.
It's important to give the opportunity to put the gaze far.
Yes, yeah, exactly,
Yes.
exactly.
Because women, their personal identities are very frequently shadowed by motherhood, and it's also important for them to be part of a community. And if this is a creative community, not just a community to take care or
right,
or a treatment or a preventive community, but a creative one. What can you tell us about this creative tribe?
Oh, well, a couple of things. One, at least in the US, the research tradition, particularly around mothers who are raising their children in poverty, is that they are not very good mothers, that they boss their children, they don't take time to read books, they don't play with them. The problem with all that research is it takes no account of context. If you are growing up raising children in a narrow, dangerous world, these aren't options, they aren't choices. So the first thing is that the Lullaby Project creates a space in which it's safe to play, to talk, to imagine these kinds of things. And you find that you create that space, and mothers are not dull or limited, or you say, I want you to write the lyrics for this lullaby. And they draw on a lullaby that their grandmother taught them. They draw on the two different languages that come to them from their different grandparents. They reach back into metaphors and images that have meant a lot to them. They talk about what they dream. So you create this space, and suddenly this characterization of them as limited or narrow or uneducated has to melt away, because you see, even if they haven't been able to go to school or any of these other things, you see in a sense, the native creativity. And then the pairing with an artist, it pulls it out, and it lasts over sessions. So in a sense, it plants it. But then, and we have learned over time how to structure the project to emphasize this. So no matter where the project takes place, there is a final sharing of the lullabies where every mother-artist pair performs them. There is also a recording, which people go to a recording studio, or a mobile recording studio is brought to them, where they make a professional grade. And even if they don't want to sing, they do the dedication. And then it's there on the SoundCloud to be pulled down anytime they want, to be shared. And then there's a big, There used to be, we'll see what happens in a new world, a big, big concert at Carnegie Hall, which is also live streamed, that draws lullabies from everywhere that they have been written and acknowledges women by name and has them performing. So over time, we've learned how to design in many elements that underscore time and time again that you have this in you.
This is fantastic because this connects every woman with a larger community, an international community, so they can link their personal experiences with a lot of other women's ones.
Yes, yeah.
This is fantastic, actually. You have also observed not only the impact that the project is making in women, but also in babies.
Well, that's sort of the frontier of the work. So we'll see. The plan is to take the Lullaby project to another city in the US, Philadelphia, and there to work in the context of health clinics, and where the clinics are taking care of babies in their earliest years, and to make this a part of what happens in early childhood care, as sort of having two aims. One is to underscore for families the importance of play and of musical play, the importance of movement, singing, laughing, those kinds of things. But then now we hope to look at the impact of that on children's development. Two major strands. One is their ability to get involved in two-person interactions where there is turn-taking and exchange, where if I sing this, you sing that, or if I beat 3, then you. Because that's such a fundamental way in which human beings learn from one another, and being able to wait, to listen, to hear what somebody else is doing is like a foundation. And so for children to have that as they go to preschool or whatever, but then also to look at language development. Part of this is happening in Philadelphia because there is a big movement there to think about parents, notably mothers, as children's first teachers. And so thinking about how do they become acknowledged for all of the teaching that they do around language. So we will be looking at, vocabulary, the complexity of language, the turn-taking in language as well. But that's the frontier.
And you have also observed the impact it's having on the musicians and the artists that are involved in the process, also nurses in the hospitals, maybe.
Yes, yeah.
What kind of experiences they?
Yeah, these are more observations than research, but so for many musicians who are engaged in this, it is some of the most intimate work that they have done with their music. So they are often in concerts or concert halls where, yes, it's a social situation, but they don't have the opportunity to see the absolute immediate impact. And they also, in order to write the lullabies, they have to listen very carefully to what the mother is saying. So instead of just writing the lullaby they would like to make, they have to write her lullaby. So for them to have the experience of being, they're used to being the creative one in the room. And now their job is to assist, to listen, to hear, and to pick out and to pull forward things from another person. So I think that's been extremely satisfying for the musicians and reminds them of some of the much more basic human reasons why they make music, besides to pay the rent, besides to be famous, besides to those kinds of things.
Exactly.
For in the case of the hospitals, much of that work has happened in the neonatal intensive care unit. So where families are there because they have an infant who is very compromised and who is, in the incubator, and they cannot touch or pick up or hold for many weeks sometimes. So singing for those parents is a way of connecting. Nurses, I think it helps to expand their sense of the ways they could help families to connect to infants. But also, that's an extraordinarily high stress job, to come to work every day to see whether infants survive or not, and to be the one responsible for not only the infant, but caring for the families and their grief. So for the nurses to have music is also important. It is satisfying, it is restful, it is graceful, it's human. A group of them in one of the NICUs decided they wanted to write their own lullaby because it could capture what it's like for them.
Yeah, just to conclude, because it's been amazing this time sharing your experience. Just to conclude, I would like you to tell us a little bit why is this innovative art-based strategy interesting and efficient in terms of promoting equity, in terms of promoting social health and well-being, and how this can be an example for, other contexts.
Right. Right. So we have a colleague in the lullaby work who's Dr. James Reed, and he and his colleagues have taken the lullaby work to sub-Saharan Africa, notably to Zambia. And he works in this framework of what's called frugal innovations. So very low cost, high impact innovations. And he argues that lullaby songs are just exactly that. They can, much more than medicines, than long clinical visits, etc. They can connect mothers to sources of their own resilience and social sources in their community. And that can be, particularly for young mothers or isolated mothers, the most important public intervention. So that when a baby begins to have a fever or to cough or to be ill, they go to someone else rather than thinking they have to wait it out. Or when they themselves begin to experience postpartum depression, they seek company rather than handling it in isolation. So I have been very moved by this idea of frugal innovations. It costs almost nothing to train your clinic volunteers to use the singing, to use the lullaby. So
It's really cost effective.
Well, sometimes cost-effective things are boring.
Yes. And
Yeah, I mean, it's both humanly rich and low cost.
mhm. Exactly. I think we have covered uh, mostly all important and very interesting points that to share with the people. But I don't know if there is anything else you would like to you're interested in sharing something in particular.
Sure. Well, I would just say that much of this is on the website at Carnegie Hall,
Mhm.
if people are interested in details. And also that June 11th and 12th, Carnegie Hall will be live streaming a Lullaby conference. And if you go to the Carnegie Hall website under Lullaby, you can register to be a part of that conversation. And we would love to have you there.
We are really looking forward to that day. We will be connected, and we are looking forward to seeing it and to joining.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Dennie. It has been a pleasure for us to hold in this conversation. We wish you lots of luck in these difficult times.
The same to all of you.
Thank you
Bye.
very much, Dennie. Bye. Bye-bye.